Through the falling snow that blanketed Northvale in white silence, Ethan Cole pulled his collar higher and crossed the empty parking lot. He was just a single father, working the night shift, trying to scrape together enough money for his daughter's Christmas presents. But a few streets away, a luxury sedan was being forced to stop in the middle of the blizzard. In that defining moment, Ethan accidentally witnessed something no one was meant to see. A skill he had sworn never to use again was forced to awaken. In just one night, the lives of a single dad and a powerful CEO would be forever changed. The fluorescent lights of Patterson's auto shop buzzed overhead as Ethan Cole wiped his grease-stained hands on a rag. Outside, snow fell in thick curtains, turning Northvale into a snow globe shaken by an invisible hand. It was 11:47 p.m. on December 18th, and most of the city had long since retreated indoors. "You heading out soon?" Danny, the shift supervisor, called from across the garage bay. Ethan glanced at the ancient wall clock. "Yeah, just finishing up this brake job. Drive careful. Weather Service is calling it the worst storm in 15 years. Ethan nodded, already mentally calculating the route home. Lily would be asleep by now, tucked in at Mrs. Chen's apartment 2 floors below his own. The elderly neighbor had been a godsend since Rachel left 3 years ago, taking nothing but her clothes and leaving behind a 7-year-old daughter who still asked when Mommy was coming home. He finished torquing the last lug nut and lowered the hydraulic lift. His body ached 10 hours of crawling under vehicles, breathing in exhaust fumes and brake dust. But the overtime pay meant Lily might actually get the art supplies she'd been circling in the craft store catalog. She'd left it open on the kitchen table, a subtle hint that made his chest tighten. "Ethan." Danny's voice carried a note of concern. "You doing okay? I mean, really okay?" "Yeah." The lie came easily. "Why? You've been pulling doubles 3 times a week. That's not sustainable, man." Ethan shrugged into his worn jacket. "Lily needs new winter boots. Her science camp deposit is due in January." "I'm fine." What he didn't say, the eviction notice tucked in his glove compartment, the maxed-out credit card, the way his daughter had started drawing pictures of houses with the caption, "Our someday home." At 10 years old, she understood more than he wished she did. Danny sighed. "All right, but if you need anything..." "I know, thanks." The cold hit him like a physical wall when he stepped outside. Snow swirled in the parking lot lights, creating ghostly dancers in the darkness. His truck, a 1998 Ford F-150 with 240,000 miles and a temperamental starter, sat alone in the employee section. It took 3 tries to get the engine turning over. As he drove through the deserted streets, Ethan's mind wandered to places he'd trained himself to avoid. Before Lily, before Rachel, before Northvale and auto shops and the simple, honest poverty of his current life, there had been another version of Ethan Cole. One who moved through the world with different skills, different purposes. He'd buried that man deep. The truck's heater wheezed out lukewarm air as he turned onto Industrial Boulevard, a shortcut through the warehouse district. No one used this route at night. The streetlights had been broken for months, and the city had budget concerns about fixing them. That's when he saw the headlights. 2 vehicles, moving fast despite the snow. The first was a black Mercedes S-Class, its brake lights flaring red as it skidded slightly. The second was a dark SUV with its high beams blazing, closing the distance with aggressive intent. Ethan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Not my business. Not anymore. But something in the way the Mercedes was driving, the desperate swerving, the speed that suggested panic rather than recklessness, made him slow down. The old instincts whispered, "This isn't right." He pulled into the shadow of a warehouse loading dock and cut his lights. 18 minutes earlier, Claire Whitmore had shut down her computer at Oryx Group headquarters and stared at her reflection in the dark window. At 38, she'd built a tech empire from the ground up. Her cybersecurity firm protected Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, military contractors. Her face had graced the covers of business magazines with headlines like "The Woman Who Knows Your Secrets" and "Silicon Valley's Ice Queen." She hated both titles equally. "Miss Whitmore?" Her assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Your car is ready, though I'd recommend waiting until morning." "The roads, I'll be fine, Jennifer. Go home to your family." Claire gathered her leather briefcase and cashmere coat. The building was nearly empty. Even the cleaning crew had left early due to the weather warnings. Her heels clicked on marble floors as she rode the elevator down 43 floors to the private garage. Marcus, her driver, stood beside the Mercedes with an umbrella. "Ma'am, I really think we should postpone. I have a conference call with Tokyo at 6 a.m. I need my notes from home." She slid into the back seat. "Let's go." Marcus knew better than to argue. As they left downtown, the snow intensified. Through the tinted windows, Northvale looked like a different city, softened, quieted, almost beautiful. Claire's phone buzzed with texts from her vice president, her brother, her personal trainer, all asking if she was safe. She ignored them all. The truth was, Claire didn't know how to stop working, didn't know how to exist in the quiet spaces between meetings and acquisitions and quarterly reports. Her penthouse apartment felt more like a hotel than a home. She'd built an empire, but somewhere along the way, forgot to build a life. "Ma'am?" Marcus's voice held an edge. "There's a vehicle following us." Claire looked up from her phone. In the side mirror, she could see headlights maintaining a precise distance. "How long?" "Since we left the garage." Her pulse quickened, but her voice remained steady. "Lose them." Marcus accelerated, taking a sharp right onto Industrial Boulevard. The SUV followed. "Call the police," Claire ordered. "No signal, ma'am. The storm." The SUV suddenly surged forward, pulling alongside them. Claire caught a glimpse of tinted windows, a driver wearing a ski mask. Then, the impact. Metal shrieked as the SUV rammed into their side. The Mercedes fishtailed on the icy road, tires screaming. Marcus fought for control, but physics won. They spun once, twice, then slammed into a concrete barrier with a sickening crunch. The airbags deployed. White powder filled the air. Claire's ears rang. Through the starred windshield, she saw 3 figures emerging from the SUV. Professional. Coordinated. Not random carjackers. The back door was wrenched open. Hands grabbed her. She tried to fight, but one of them pressed something cold against her neck, a taser. Her muscles seized. The last thing she saw before the hood came down was Marcus, slumped over the steering wheel, blood on his temple. Then darkness. From his position in the shadows, Ethan watched it unfold with the detached precision of a man reading a tactical manual. 3 subjects, military-grade coordination, extraction time under 90 seconds. The taser. Not a gun, they wanted her conscious but compliant. The deliberate ramming technique, professional drivers. The ski masks, despite the remote location, experienced enough to assume surveillance. This wasn't opportunistic. This was planned. The woman, he couldn't see her face from this distance, was hauled into the SUV. One of the masked figures returned to the Mercedes, checking the driver. A brief conversation, then 2 sharp gestures. The SUV's taillights flared red, then disappeared into the snow. Ethan sat in his truck, hands still gripping the wheel. The engine idled. The heater wheezed. Every rational part of his brain screamed, "Drive away. Call 911 when you get a signal. This isn't your fight anymore." But his eyes had already traced the SUV's direction. Northwest, toward the abandoned industrial park at Iron Creek. The snow was falling hard enough to hide tracks within minutes. If he waited even 10 minutes to find a phone signal, they'd vanish. He thought of Lily, her gap-toothed smile when he'd taught her to ride a bike. The way she still reached for his hand when they crossed streets. If something happened to him tonight, what would happen to her? But he also thought of the woman in that SUV, someone's daughter. Maybe someone's mother. Being taken somewhere dark by people who operated with the efficiency of executioners. Ethan closed his eyes. When he opened them, something had shifted. His breathing slowed. His awareness expanded. The old neural pathways, dormant but never truly dead, began firing again. He put the truck in gear and followed the rapidly disappearing tire tracks. The tracks led exactly where he'd predicted. Iron Creek Industrial Park had been Northvale's manufacturing heart in the 70s. Textile mills, steel fabrication, warehousing. Then the jobs moved overseas, and the buildings became hollow shells, hosting nothing but pigeons and rusted machinery. Ethan killed his headlights half a mile out and approached on pure instinct. The snow was a tactical advantage now, muffling sound, obscuring visibility. He parked behind a collapsed water tower and continued on foot. The cold bit through his jacket, but he barely felt it. His mind had shifted into a state he'd once known as intimately as breathing. Assessment mode. Every shadow evaluated, every sound catalogued, threat vectors calculated automatically. He moved between buildings like smoke, following the faint impression of tire tracks already filling with fresh snow. A chain-link fence, cut open months ago. A loading dock with shattered windows. The skeletal frame of a crane pointing at the sky like an accusation. Then he saw it. The SUV, parked beside a brick warehouse with most of its windows intact. Light leaked from cracks in a boarded-up entrance. Ethan crouched behind a rusted dumpster, watching. 2 minutes passed. 3. Then a figure emerged, one of the masked men, lighting a cigarette. Amateur move. The ember would destroy his night vision. The man spoke into a radio. Subject is secure. Waiting for further instructions. A crackled response Ethan couldn't make out. No witnesses. The driver's alive but won't remember anything useful. Concussion protocol. Another pause. Understood. We hold here until 0400, then move to the secondary location, 4 a.m. That gave them roughly 4 hours. Time enough for whoever ordered this to decide what to do with Claire Whitmore. Ethan's jaw clenched. He knew how these situations evolved. Once she'd been moved to a secondary location, her chances of survival dropped exponentially. A memory surfaced, unbidden. Kabul, 2009. A contractor's wife, taken by an insurgent cell. Ethan's team had been tasked with extraction. They'd been 12 hours too late. He could still see her eyes, or what was left of them in the photographs. He'd walked away from that life. Walked away from the blood and the nightmares and the things he'd done in the name of national security. He'd chosen Lily. Chosen simplicity. Chosen to be a man who fixed cars. Not a man who ended lives. But watching the light flicker in that warehouse, knowing a woman was sitting in the dark with a hood over her head, while men with radios decided her fate, Ethan reached into his jacket and found his phone. No signal. Of course. He looked back toward where his truck was hidden. He could run. Get to high ground. Find a signal. Let the professionals handle it. That was the smart play. The safe play. The play that let him go home to Lily. But by the time help arrived, it would be 0400. They'd be gone. And Claire Whitmore would become another statistic. His daughter's voice echoed in his memory. Dad, do you think heroes are real? What do you mean, sweetheart? Like in stories. People who help, even when it's scary. Why do you ask? Because you're my hero. You're always helping people at the shop. Mrs. Chen says you fixed her car for free because she's on a fixed income. You're the best kind of hero, the real kind. Ethan closed his eyes against the snow. Then he moved toward the warehouse. The training came back like muscle memory. Ethan circled the perimeter, noting 3 external guards, 2 entrance points, 1 emergency exit partially blocked by a fallen beam. The windows were too high and too exposed. The front door was steel, recently reinforced. That left the skylight. He scaled the adjacent building using maintenance ladders so rusted they left orange stains on his gloves. The roof was treacherous ice beneath snow, metal sheeting that groaned underfoot. He moved with the precise weight distribution of a cat, testing each surface before committing. The skylight was exactly where he remembered from the building schematics his mind automatically recalled. These warehouses were all built from the same blueprints in 1974. He'd studied them once, years ago, for reasons he no longer let himself think about. Below, he could see the interior. Claire sat in a metal chair, hands zip-tied behind her back, hood still in place. 3 guards visible, probably one more out of his sight line. They were relaxed, expecting no trouble, just babysitting until the handoff. Ethan assessed his resources. A multi-tool on his belt, a tire iron from the truck, his hands, and 16 years of training that had been drilled into him at facilities whose names he'd signed documents never to reveal. No gun. That was actually good. Guns made noise, created evidence, escalated situations. What he needed was precision. He studied the guards' patterns. The one near Claire, call him Guard 1, checked his phone every 3 minutes. Guard 2 paced along the north wall, completing a circuit every 5 minutes. Guard 3 sat at a makeshift desk near the entrance, monitoring a police scanner. Guard 4, yes, there he was, stood by the emergency exit. Ethan waited until the pattern repeated twice. Confirmation. Then he used the tire iron to slowly, silently pry open the skylight. The metal groaned softly, but the sound was lost beneath the howl of wind through broken windows. He widened the gap just enough. A rope would have been useful. He didn't have one. But there was a chain hanging from an old pulley system 3 feet to his left. Ethan tested it, rusty but solid. He wrapped it around his forearm, took 3 controlled breaths, and dropped. The descent was 20 feet. He controlled his speed with the chain, minimizing noise. At the bottom, he hit the concrete floor in a shoulder roll that dissipated the impact. Guard 2 spun around. What? Ethan was already moving. 3 steps, inside the guard's reaction time. He struck the brachial plexus nerve cluster, a precise blow that caused temporary paralysis without permanent damage. The guard dropped. "Contact!" Guard 1 shouted, reaching for his weapon. But Ethan had calculated the angles. He used Guard 2's falling body as a screen, closed the distance, and delivered a palm strike to Guard 1's solar plexus that folded him like paper. Guard 3 was scrambling up from the desk. Ethan kicked the chair into his path, bought himself 2 seconds, and used them to disable the man with a textbook chokehold. 7 seconds. Unconscious but breathing. Guard 4 had better training. He'd drawn his weapon, a Glock 19, and was sighting down the barrel. "Don't move!" Ethan froze, hands visible. "Easy. On your knees. Now!" Ethan complied, moving slowly. His eyes tracked the minute tremor in Guard 4's hands. Adrenaline. Fear. The man was competent but not experienced in actual confrontation. "You made a mistake coming here," Guard 4 said. His voice carried the false bravado of someone trying to convince himself. "Maybe," Ethan said calmly. "But you made one too." "What's that?" "You're standing directly beneath the loose electrical conduit." It was a lie. But Guard 4's eyes flicked upward for a fraction of a second, pure instinct. Ethan moved. He pivoted left, out of the firing line, grabbed the fallen chair, and hurled it. Guard 4 fired. The shot went wide, ricocheting off concrete. By the time he corrected his aim, Ethan had closed the gap. He trapped the gun hand, twisted, applied pressure to the wrist. The Glock clattered to the floor. The fight lasted 8 more seconds. It ended with Guard 4 unconscious and Ethan's knuckles bleeding. Silence descended, broken only by his breathing and the wind. Ethan walked to Claire and gently removed the hood. Claire's eyes took a moment to adjust to the light. When they focused on Ethan, He saw the rapid cognitive processing of a brilliant mind trying to make sense of chaos. Who she started. "No time," Ethan said, pulling out his multi-tool to cut her zip ties. "Can you walk?" "Yes." "Who are you?" "Someone who was in the wrong place at the wrong time." "Or the right place." He helped her stand. She was steady, despite everything. "Impressive. Where's Marcus?" "My driver. Alive. Injured, but alive. Emergency services should find him soon." Ethan glanced at the unconscious guards. "We need to move. They're expecting a check-in." As if summoned by his words, a radio on Guard 3's belt crackled. "Unit 2, status report." Ethan grabbed the radio. He'd been listening to their communication patterns. He mimicked Guard 3's vocal cadence. "All secure. Subject compliant." A pause. Then, "Confirm" with the passphrase. Ethan's jaw tightened. Of course they had verification protocols. He dropped the radio and grabbed Claire's hand. "Run." They burst through the emergency exit into the blizzard. The snow had intensified. Visibility was maybe 15 feet. Ethan oriented himself by the position of the water tower silhouette, pulling Claire toward where he'd hidden the truck. Behind them, shouts. The guards were waking up. "This way," Ethan directed, pulling her down a narrow alley between buildings. The snow was knee-deep here, slowing them down. An engine roared to life. The SUV. "They're going to cut us off at the fence line," Claire said, her tactical mind clearly still functioning. Ethan nodded. "Smart woman. Then we don't go to the fence." He changed direction, heading deeper into the industrial park. Claire kept pace, her expensive boots wholly inadequate for the terrain, but her determination more than compensating. They ducked into a collapsed machine shop, hiding behind an overturned industrial lathe. Through the gaps in the walls, they could see the SUV's searchlight sweeping the area. "Why are you helping me?" Claire whispered. Ethan watched the light pattern. "Does it matter?" "It might." "How do I know you're not with them?" "If I was with them, you'd still be in that chair." The searchlight passed close enough that Ethan could feel the heat of it. They both held perfectly still. "I need to understand," Claire pressed. "What you did back there that wasn't luck, that was training." "Military? Police? Mechanic," Ethan said flatly. "Mechanics don't move like that. This one does." The SUV moved on, searching the wrong sector. Ethan waited 2 full minutes before speaking again. "My truck is 300 yards north. When I say go, we run straight and we don't stop. I'm wearing heels in a blizzard. Then I'll carry you if I have to." She met his eyes. In the dim light reflecting off snow, Ethan saw something in her expression shift, a kind of respect. Maybe, or recognition of someone equally unwilling to give up. "I can run," she said. "Good." They waited until the SUV's engine noise faded to the south, then burst from cover. The run was brutal snow, ice, darkness, the constant threat of pursuit. Ethan's lungs burned. Claire stumbled twice but pulled herself up before he could help. The truck emerged from the white like salvation. "Get in," Ethan ordered, fumbling for his keys. Claire climbed in. Ethan turned the ignition. The starter clicked once, twice. "Come on," he muttered. Third try. The engine caught. He threw the transmission into reverse without waiting for it to warm up, backing between buildings and then accelerating toward the exit. No headlights. Navigation by memory and instinct. They hit the main road just as the SUV's searchlight found the empty space where the truck had been parked. Ethan drove. He took side streets, doubled back twice, ran one red light when he was certain no other cars were present. Only when he'd put 5 miles between them and Iron Creek did he finally turn on the headlights. Claire sat in silence, watching him. Finally, she spoke. "You have a daughter." Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel. "What?" "There's a child's drawing taped to your dashboard. A house with flowers and 2 stick figures. One labeled Lily, One labeled Daddy. He didn't respond. You risked your life tonight. For a stranger. But you have a daughter who needs you. Yeah, Ethan said quietly. I do. Then why? He thought about the question. About Kabul and the contractor's wife. About every choice he'd made since the day Lily was born, when he'd held her in the hospital and sworn to be a different kind of man. Because she needs to grow up in a world where people help each other, he finally said. Even when it's scary. Claire said nothing for a long moment. Then, thank you. Ethan pulled into a 24-hour diner parking lot. Lights blazed warm against the snow. You should call the police from here. Tell them everything. I'll wait. Claire's hand on his arm stopped him. I need your name. No, you don't. Yes. I do. Ethan looked at her, really looked. Her designer clothes were torn, her perfect hair disheveled, her makeup smeared. But her eyes were clear and fierce. Ethan, he said. Ethan Cole, Claire Whitmore. I know who you are. She almost smiled. Everyone does. But after tonight, I know who you are too. I'm no one, Ethan said. Just a guy who fixes cars. He put the truck in gear and drove away before she could argue. Ethan picked up Lily at 6:30 a.m. from Mrs. Chen's apartment, same as every morning. He'd showered, changed into clean clothes, hidden his bruised knuckles in gloves. If you didn't look too closely at the shadows under his eyes, he appeared normal. Daddy! Lily launched herself into his arms, still in her snowflake pajamas. Hey, sweetheart. He breathed in the smell of her strawberry shampoo. Let the simple reality of her anchor him back to this life. You're cold, she observed, touching his cheek. Had to walk from the parking lot. Big snow last night. I know. Mrs. Chen says there's enough snow for a snowman. Can we build one after school? Absolutely. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, her weathered face creasing into a smile. Coffee's on if you need some. Thanks, but we should get going. Lily chattered all through breakfast about a book she was reading, about her friend Emma's upcoming birthday party, about whether penguins could ever live in Northvale if it got cold enough. Ethan listened, responded, played his role perfectly. Just a dad, making toast and packing lunches. Only when Lily was safely on the school bus did he allow himself to check his phone. 17 missed calls, all from unknown numbers. The news was already breaking. He heard it on the radio while driving to the shop. CEO of Orex Group is safe this morning after what police are calling an attempted kidnapping. Claire Whitmore was reportedly abducted from Industrial Boulevard around midnight, but managed to escape with the help of an unidentified individual. Ethan turned it off. At the shop, Danny was glued to his phone. Dude, you hear about this? The CEO lady from Orex? Someone kidnapped her. Crazy, Ethan said, pulling on his coveralls. Yeah, but get this, she won't tell police who helped her. Just keep saying, a concerned citizen. How weird is that? Maybe she doesn't know who it was. Or maybe it was Batman, Danny laughed. We could use a Batman in this town. Ethan didn't respond. He crawled under a Subaru Outback and lost himself in the familiar rhythm of work. Socket wrench. Drain pan. Filter housing. Simple mechanical problems with simple mechanical solutions. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He ignored it. Meanwhile, across the city, Claire Whitmore sat in her corner office on the 43rd floor, staring at the snowscape. She'd given the police her statement carefully edited to protect Ethan's identity. She'd reassured her board of directors. She'd reviewed security protocols with her head of operations. But she couldn't stop thinking about the man in the truck. Miss Whitmore? Jennifer knocked softly. The private investigator is here. Send him in. Gregory Nash was the best in the business. Ex-FBI. Connections throughout every level of law enforcement and corporate security. If anyone could find Ethan Cole, it was him. I have preliminary information, Nash said, laying out a thin folder. Ethan Cole. Age 39. currently employed at Patterson's Auto Shop on Riverside. Single father to Lily Cole, age 10. No criminal record. But his background before 7 years ago is remarkably sparse. No employment history. No digital footprint. It's as if he didn't exist before 2018. Claire leaned forward. People don't just appear from nowhere. Exactly. Which suggests witness protection, intelligence work, or someone very good at erasing their past. Nash pulled out a photograph Ethan's employee ID from the auto shop. Whatever he was before, he's living well below his capabilities now. His apartment costs $800 a month in a building that should have been condemned. He works 60-hour weeks for $17 an hour. Why? Claire murmured. That's the question, isn't it? Nash closed the folder. Do you want me to dig deeper? Claire thought about Ethan's hands on the steering wheel, the controlled precision of his movements, the way he'd looked at his daughter's drawing with such tenderness. No, she said. Not yet. Nash raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, leave it. For now. After he left, Claire opened her own laptop and began typing. She routed her search through 7 proxies' old habits from her cybersecurity days. If Gregory Nash couldn't find Ethan's history, she'd find it herself. What she discovered, buried in classified databases she technically shouldn't have access to, made her hands still on the keyboard. Special Activities Division, Kabul, Beirut, a dozen other places whose names were redacted, decorations that would never be publicly acknowledged. And then, 7 years ago, an honorable discharge and a complete disappearance from record. Not running from the law. Running from the life. Claire closed the laptop. She looked at her calendar, back-to-back meetings for the next 6 hours. Conference calls, strategy sessions, investor presentations. The relentless machinery of corporate success. But all she could think about was a man who'd walked away from everything to fix cars and raise his daughter. A man who'd risked it all for a stranger in a snowstorm. 3 days later, Claire made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She cleared her entire afternoon schedule. Jennifer, she said into the intercom, I need you to find out everything publicly available about Patterson's Auto Shop. Customer reviews, employee rosters, anything. Ma'am, just do it, please. 2 hours later, Claire was reading through the information on her tablet. The shop had decent reviews, nothing spectacular, but consistent praise for honest work and fair prices. Several customers specifically mentioned an Ethan who diagnosed problems other mechanics had missed. There was a photo from a local charity event the shop had donated free oil changes to low-income seniors. In the background, barely visible, was Ethan. Looking uncomfortable in the attention, Claire studied the image for a long time. That evening, against every instinct that had made her successful, she drove to Patterson's auto shop herself. No driver, no security detail, just her in a rental car, wearing jeans and a coat that cost less than her usual dry cleaning bill. The shop was closing up. Through the windows, she could see mechanics cleaning their workstations. And there, wiping down a tool chest, was Ethan. Her hand was on the door handle when she stopped. What was she doing? This man had made it clear he wanted no part of her world. He'd disappeared before she could even get his full story. He'd rebuilt his entire life around anonymity and simplicity. She had no right to disrupt that. Claire was about to leave when she noticed something else. In the parking lot, a small figure was playing in a pile of snow bundled in a pink coat, building what looked like a snow fortress. Lily. The girl's laughter carried across the parking lot, clear and joyful. As Claire watched, Ethan emerged from the shop. Lily ran to him, and he swept her up, spinning her around before setting her down. Their interaction was so natural, so full of warmth, that Claire felt something crack in her chest. This was what Ethan had risked losing. This pure, simple joy. She put the car in reverse and drove away. But Claire Whitmore hadn't built an empire by giving up easily. She spent the next week learning everything she could about Ethan's situation, not through investigation, but through observation. She drove past his apartment building. She noted the eviction notice on the door. She learned about the school supply fundraiser at Lily's school that Ethan had to decline because he couldn't afford the $50 donation. And she made a plan. On Monday morning, Patterson's auto shop received an unusual request. Oryx Group's entire fleet 47 vehicles needed immediate safety inspections and maintenance. They were willing to pay premium rates. But there was one condition. They wanted Ethan Cole specifically to oversee the work. Danny practically ran to Ethan with the news. "Do you know how much revenue this is? This could keep us busy for 2 months." Ethan read the work order slowly. Why would they request me specifically? Who cares? This is huge. But Ethan knew exactly why. That afternoon, a black town car pulled into the lot. Claire stepped out, wearing a business suit that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly salary. "We need to talk," she said. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag. "I'm working. I can see that. This won't take long." They walked to the edge of the lot, out of earshot from the other mechanics. Snow was piled high from the plows, creating temporary walls around them. "The fleet contract," Ethan said. "That's you. I don't need charity." "It's not charity. It's fair payment for skilled work." Claire's voice was level, professional. "But, I'll be honest, it's also a chance to say thank you properly." "You already said thank you." "No, I said 2 words in a truck while I was in shock. That's not the same thing." She paused. "I know what you gave up that night. I know you have a daughter. I know you're barely making rent. And I know you investigated me." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You had no right. You're correct." "I didn't." Claire met his eyes directly. "But I also couldn't just walk away. You saved my life, Ethan. Do you understand what that means to me? It means you got lucky. I was there. That's all. No." Her voice sharpened. "Don't diminish what you did. Those men were professionals. Without you, I'd be in a basement somewhere, or worse. I've read the police reports. I know what they found when they raided that warehouse." Ethan said nothing. "I want to offer you a job," Claire said. "I have a job. I mean at Oryx Group. Head of physical security, 6-figure salary, benefits, college fund for Lily, a future." The words hung in the cold air between them. "Why?" Ethan finally asked. "Because you're exactly what we need. Someone with your skills, your judgment, your—" "No." His voice was firm. "I'm done with that life. This isn't that life. It's corporate security. Protecting data centers, vetting personnel, threat assessment. Not—" She hesitated. "Not what you did before." Ethan's expression hardened. "So you did dig deep. I had to understand who saved me. And now you know. A guy who made bad choices and is trying to do better." He turned to walk away. "Is providing for your daughter a bad choice?" Claire called after him. He stopped. "Is giving Lily stability, opportunity, a chance at college, is that bad?" Claire stepped closer. "I'm not asking you to go back to being who you were. I'm asking you to use those skills to protect people legally, ethically, with a full paycheck and a normal life. There's nothing normal about working for a tech empire. There's nothing normal about fixing cars for poverty wages when you're capable of so much more." The words hit harder than she'd intended. Ethan's shoulders tensed. "I'm sorry," Claire said quietly. "That was unfair." "No. It was honest." Ethan turned back to face her. "You want honesty? I left that world because I was good at things I hated. I was good at violence, at making hard calls that ended in body counts, and I couldn't look at myself anymore. So you chose poverty instead? I chose peace. There's a difference." Claire studied him for a long moment. "What if I told you that you could have both, peace and security?" "I'd say you don't understand what you're asking." "Then help me understand." They stood in the snow, 2 people from completely different worlds, both struggling to find words for something that mattered more than either wanted to admit. Finally, Ethan spoke. "I need to think about it." "Of course. Take all the time you need." Claire handed him a business card. "My personal number is on there. Call me when you've decided." She walked back to the town car. "Claire," Ethan called. She turned. "Why does it matter so much to you?" She considered the question carefully. "Because for the first time in 15 years, someone helped me expecting nothing in return. And in this world, that's rarer than you might think." Ethan didn't call for 2 weeks. He went to work. He picked up Lily from school. He built snowmen and helped with homework and read bedtime stories. He lay awake at night, staring at the water-stained ceiling, thinking about 6-figure salaries and college funds and the look in Claire's eyes when she'd said, "Take all the time you need." Mrs. Chen noticed. "You've been quiet lately. Just thinking about that job offer?" When Ethan looked surprised, she smiled. "Lily mentioned a fancy lady came to the shop. Word travels in 10-year-old circles." "Yeah." "Big opportunity?" "Yeah." "Scary?" "Yeah." Mrs. Chen patted his hand. "The best opportunities usually are." The decision came unexpectedly, as most important decisions do. It was Saturday morning. Ethan was making pancakes, Lily's favorite, when she came into the kitchen carrying her school fundraiser envelope. "Dad? Can we talk about something?" "Sure, sweetheart. What's up?" "Emma's going on the science trip to the planetarium. It costs $85. She didn't look at him, focusing instead on the placemat. "I know we can't afford it." "That's okay. I just wanted to tell you so you wouldn't feel bad when Emma talks about it." Ethan's heart cracked. His daughter, his brilliant, kind, understanding daughter, was learning to shrink her dreams to fit their budget. "Lily, it's fine, Dad. Really." Emma said, "I can see the pictures." That's when Ethan knew. He called Claire that afternoon. The meeting was at RX Group headquarters, but Claire met him in the lobby rather than making him navigate security alone. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Thanks for the offer." They rode the elevator to the 43rd floor in silence. Claire's office was exactly what he'd expected: floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, the kind of calculated elegance that showed success without being ostentatious. "Coffee?" she offered. "I'm good." They sat across from each other, a polished conference table between them. "I've been thinking about what you said," Ethan began, "about using my skills to protect instead of." He trailed off. "Instead of what you did before," Claire finished gently. "Yeah." He took a breath. "I need to know exactly what you're asking. No corporate speak." "What would I actually be doing?" Claire nodded, appreciating the directness. "RX Group handles extremely sensitive data. We protect infrastructure, power grids, water systems, financial networks, which means we're a constant target for nation-states, criminal organizations, industrial espionage. So you need someone who thinks like them." "Exactly. Someone who can anticipate attacks, identify vulnerabilities, assess threats." "But Ethan," she leaned forward, "this is all defensive. We don't engage in offensive operations. We protect. That's the line. And if that line gets blurred, then you walk away. With full severance. That's in the contract." Ethan considered this. "What about Lily? What about her? The hours? The travel? You set your own schedule within reason. If you need to pick up your daughter at 3:30, you pick her up at 3:30. If you need a week off for her school play, you take it." Claire's expression softened. "I'm not asking you to choose between this job and being a father. I'm asking you to finally have the resources to be the father you want to be." The words hit home. Ethan looked out the window at Northvale spread below, the city where he'd hidden for 7 years. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Anything. Why are you really doing this? And don't say it's because I saved you. There are 100 ways you could have shown gratitude without offering me a job that requires this much trust." Claire was quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you know what I did before I started Orex? I was a penetration tester. I broke into systems legally to expose their weaknesses. I was good at it, really good. But I was also angry at a world that judged me for being young and female in a male-dominated field. So, I got aggressive. I pushed boundaries. I made enemies." She stood, walking to the window. 10 years ago, one of those enemies tried to destroy me. They planted evidence, fabricated claims, nearly succeeded in ruining my reputation. I was saved by someone I'd never met, a programmer who anonymously provided evidence of the tampering. They risked their career, expected nothing. Who was it? I still don't know. But that moment taught me something. Sometimes the people who help you aren't the ones you'd expect, and sometimes giving someone a second chance is how you pay forward the second chance you received. She turned back to face him. "You walked away from violence to be a better man. I respect that more than you know. But Ethan, you're still capable of protecting people. You can still use your skills for good. I'm not asking you to go back. I'm asking you to move forward." Ethan thought about Lily's too mature smile, about Mrs. Chen's electricity bill she couldn't pay, about the eviction notice and the car repairs he did for free, and the slow grinding poverty that no amount of hard work seemed to fix. He thought about the contractor's wife in Kabul, about all the people he'd protected in the shadows, unnamed and unremembered. Maybe there was a way to protect people in the light. "I have conditions," he said. Claire sat back down. "I'm listening. 1. If something ever feels wrong, morally or legally, I walk. No questions, no pressure. Agreed. 2. Lily comes first, always. If there's a conflict, she wins. Absolutely. 3. My past stays my past. I don't want explanations or justifications or team-building exercises where I share my story. Understood. 4. I want Mrs. Chen, the woman who watches Lily, to have a job too. Something simple. Reception, filing, whatever. But something with benefits." Claire smiled slightly. "Done. Anything else?" Ethan looked at her carefully. "Why do I get the feeling you've been 3 steps ahead of me this entire conversation? Because I didn't build this company by being unprepared." She slid a folder across the table. "Everything we've discussed is already in the contract, plus a signing bonus, relocation assistance if you want to move to a better neighborhood, and a college fund that starts immediately." Ethan opened the folder. The numbers made his breath catch. "This is more than fair," he said quietly. "It's exactly what you're worth." He looked at the contract, then at Claire, then back at the contract. A lifetime of choices compressed into this single moment. "When would I start?" "Whenever you're ready." 2 weeks? A month? 2 weeks. He picked up the pen, hesitated one last time, then signed. Claire extended her hand. "Welcome to RX Group, Mr. Cole." He shook it. "Thank you, Miss Whitmore." "Claire, please, then call me Ethan." As he left the building, Ethan pulled out his phone and texted Mrs. Chen. "Pick up Lily from school today. I have news, good news." Then he walked out into the cold afternoon sun, where the snow was finally beginning to melt. 3 months later, Ethan sat in his new office on the 38th floor, reviewing security protocols for RX's new data center. The work was challenging complex threat assessments, coordination with law enforcement, strategic planning. It used every skill he'd developed in his previous life, but in service of protection rather than destruction. The office door opened. Lily bounded in, still in her school uniform. "Dad," Mrs. Chen said, "I could come up." "Hey, sweetheart." He closed the laptop. "How was school?" "Amazing. We're doing a project on renewable energy and I get to be team leader." She dropped her backpack and immediately went to the window. "You can see our whole neighborhood from here." "Is that our building? The brick one?" "That's the one." They'd moved to a better apartment, nothing fancy, but clean and safe, with heat that worked and windows that didn't leak. Lily had her own room for the first time. Jen had an apartment in the same building, working part-time at Orex's reception desk and loving every minute of telling people I've known Ethan since he was just fixing cars. "Can we get hot chocolate on the way home?" Lily asked. "Sure thing." As they rode the elevator down, Lily chattering about her project, Ethan caught their reflection in the polished doors. Father and daughter, safe, stable, moving forward. The lobby was busy with end-of-day foot traffic. Ethan was navigating through the crowd when he saw Claire by the security desk, talking to her assistant. Their eyes met across the lobby. Claire smiled a real smile, not the corporate one, and gave a small wave. Ethan nodded back. "Is that the fancy lady from the shop?" Lily whispered. "That's my boss. She seems nice." "She is." They pushed through the revolving door into the early spring air. The snow had melted weeks ago, leaving behind the muddy promise of new growth. The city smelled like rain and possibility. "Dad?" Lily tugged his hand. "Are you happy?" The question surprised him. "Yeah, sweetheart. I am. Are you?" "Uh-huh. I like our new place. I like that you smile more now. I like that we got to go to the planetarium." She swung their joined hands. "I like that you're still my hero, but now you don't look so tired all the time." Ethan's throat tightened. "You know what? I like those things too." They walked toward the parking garage. Ethan now drove a reliable car, nothing fancy but something that started every time, and as they went, Ethan thought about the chain of choices that had led here. The night in the snow. The decision to help. The decision to accept help. His phone buzzed. A message from Claire. "Security assessment for the Berlin office needs review. No rush, Monday is fine. Enjoy your weekend." He pocketed the phone without responding. Monday was soon enough. For now, he had a daughter who wanted hot chocolate, a weekend with no crisis, and a future that finally felt like his own. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Ethan stood on his apartment balcony watching the city lights. Spring was coming, you could feel it in the air. The slow thaw after a long winter. His phone rang. Claire's name on the display. "Hey," he answered. "I hope I'm not calling too late." "It's fine. Lily's asleep." "Good." A pause. "I wanted to thank you again. The work you did on the Berlin assessment was exceptional. The team there is already implementing your recommendations. Just doing my job. It's more than that. And you know it." Another pause. "Ethan, I've been thinking. There's a conference in Boston next month, corporate security, threat assessment, the usual. I was wondering if you'd want to present. Your perspective on transitioning military skills to corporate protection would be valuable." "I don't know. Public speaking isn't really. I understand if it's too much. But I think people need to hear your story. Not the classified parts, just how someone can change directions. Build something new." Ethan considered this. A year ago, he would have refused immediately. But now, "Can I think about it?" Of course. They talked for a few more minutes about work, about Lily's science project, about nothing important and everything important. When they hung up, Ethan realized he was smiling. He looked at the city one more time, then went inside. In the hallway, he paused by Lily's room. The door was cracked open. He could see her buried under blankets, one arm around a stuffed elephant he'd bought her for her birthday. On her nightstand was a new drawing a house with flowers. But this time there were 3 stick figures, one labeled Daddy, one labeled Lily, and one labeled Claire. Ethan's breath caught. He quietly closed the door and went to his own room. Tomorrow he'd ask Lily about the drawing. Tomorrow he'd respond to Claire's email. Tomorrow he'd review the Berlin assessment and make plans for the conference. But tonight, he let himself feel something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Outside, a light rain began to fall. washing away the last remnants of winter, making way for spring. And in an apartment across the city, Claire Whitmore stood at her own window, looking at the same rain, thinking about a man in a truck who'd changed her life by refusing to look away from someone who needed help. She picked up her phone and typed a message, then deleted it. Some things didn't need to be said. The snow had melted, the storm had passed, and two people who'd met in the darkness had found their way toward light.